Namaste from Deepesh. Hello to the wonderful Dynamics 365 and Power Platform community. Today we are going to continue in volume 3 of my YouTube series Power Integration. What's the topic of integration today? It's a big one, right? I have been fighting with this one for a really long time. Syncing permissions between your Dynamics 365 customer engagement record and the appropriate document folder location. We are going to use Power Automate to sync this particular permission for one of the opportunity records in the demonstration today and see how easy it is to use this particular technology to achieve the desired results in integrating two different kinds of products or services. Before we get going, if you want to follow me and learn alongside, you can use any of the mediums that I have listed over here. Let's get going, guys, to the demonstration first. As you can see behind me, I have an opportunity record project for D365 Upgrade. That's an opportunity that I've created for our own organization, Dynamicity. And then if I look at the document location, there's a document associated grid. We are following account-based structuring. That means all my folder locations are going to create under the account folder structure, like account slash the record type, then the record name, and that way all the folders are going to create it. That I'm going to quickly present when I look back and move to SharePoint. So here is the record that is created in the out-of-box integration, and if I click on manage access, you can see that none of the explicit record that I have transferred to has access over here. It is already the Dynamics 365 visitors and other things that we configured in groups that have access to this particular record. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to transfer the ownership of the record, and let's see what happens to our underneath folder, right? As far as Dynamics 365 CE ownership is transferred, what we want to do is we also want to give access to this particular folder location. Now I'm going ahead and I'm coming to the owner over here, and I'm going to change it from this to my colleague Harshal. So I'm just going to move it to Harshal, and then I'm going to save this record. So I basically ended up transferring the opportunity at my end. Let's see the effect in SharePoint now. So now we are on the SharePoint screen. As you can see, Harshal now has access to this particular record type, right? So that's a great way using Power Automate to sync the permissions. This is just one small example. Let's see how this one was built. So let's quickly understand the flow that generated this thing. So first of all, we are going to look at the trigger condition. So this was generated using update. We are looking for update of opportunities, and we are only specifically looking for owner ID update. Then after, I'm getting account details, getting the account because we are following account based structure. So this is going to be important, and we're going to understand it in the later step. Thereafter, I'm going to get the user details. So I'm getting the user detail that is also required to give grant or permissions later. So I'm going to explain that also why I'm retrieving this particular details. Then I'm initializing this variable. This step is pretty important. Behind me, I have projected the formulas that are used in creating that appropriate structure. So first of all, the get account details is the step name where I was getting the account details. What I'm doing in the first replace is I'm taking the name field, which is the account name, and replacing a special characters kind of dot, which was there in some of the examples. Sometimes in the organization name, we have a dot or some special character, replacing it with a single tilde here. So that's pretty important. So replacing it with the single tilde. Then what I'm doing is also taking the account ID and replacing all the tildes in our GUID for the account into empty string. The same step I'm also following with opportunity ID, but here I'm using two upper because that's the folder structure. Under the account, the underneath entity, the child record structure always follows the two upper convention. So that's why I'm taking that opportunity ID and then replacing the single tilde in the GUID field of opportunity identifier with a blank one. This step is pretty important, and that is going to serve the output of the next one. I'm also going to explain one run which was done as a part of our demonstration that will clarify this particular requirement to you as well. The next step is to get the folder metadata. So as you can see, I'm mentioning the site address for our company, and that's a demonstration site address that I have created. And then I'm giving this file identifier, which is the folder location. Now this folder location is dynamic. So under this site address, I'm trying to get the folder metadata for the file identifier. That's what this particular step is about. If I go further down, the next step is to get the folder metadata. So as you can see, I'm mentioning the site address for our company, and that's a demonstration site address that I have created. And then I'm giving this file identifier, which is the folder location. Now this folder location is dynamic. So under this site address, I'm trying to get the folder metadata for the file identifier. That's what this particular step is about. If I go further down, as you can see, now I have moved under the site address again in the grant access to an item or a folder action under my flow. I have looked at the library name, and since we are following account based structure, I have put it over under account. If you're following contact based structure, you can put appropriately as and when your requirement is. Then I'm getting the item ID. This item ID is generated from the last step. This is going to be important to identify and give access to anything. Then I'm passing the primary email from the owner. So since I transferred the owner and I did a get user email. So if you remember, there is a step get user details that I did above this. That's the primary email, and I've given the role as can edit. You can also, as based on your requirement, choose to give can view over here, right? So that's the way this particular flow was configured. Let's see the run so that we can clarify what was generated as an output in the folder structure. That is an important step. So this is the particular important step that where the folder location is formed. If you form that incorrectly, it's not going to work out. So if you see the value that is generated over here, it is exactly replicating the folder structure URL based on which I will get my folder metadata, right? So I'm going to get a folder metadata as an output. So I got some item ID and other details, which I'm going to pass here. And there I'm passing the appropriate email ID for which the grant has to be given. So hopefully this is clear to you at this stage. So I hope you have learned alongside me in this wonderful series. If you want to continue and learn alongside me, you are more than free to follow me through any of my channels. You can contact us here at Dynamicity in case of any of your Power Platform or Dynamics 365 needs. Power 365 as usual, guys. Stay safe and keep learning.